Can you believe that these street photos came from the same action camera that shot this video?
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Well, weirdly, this camera is not unique in this way, because both of these cameras aim to accomplish the same goal, but they take different journeys to get to the same destination. They're kind of like a pair of twins separated at birth, meeting again later in life.
Oh, don't do this to me, I'm already seeing double.
So in this video, we're going to compare both of these cameras on their strengths and weaknesses, both for shooting street photography and also as action cameras. But before we dive in, if you want to pick up an Ace Pro 2 for yourself or as a Valentine's Day gift, and get the Explorer Grip Pro bundle for 15.5% off, you can follow the link in the description below and use my code GeorgeHolden to get a free Mic Air gift included in that as well, which I'll be showing you a little bit later in this video. Now, in case you missed my first video on the Insta360 Ace Pro 2, this once upon a time action camera has been having a new lease of life as a legit street photography tool. But using this camera got me thinking about another camera that kind of has a similar personality, and that is this, the OM System TG7. Yes, the video is finally here. While Insta360 are sponsoring this video, we're going to be comparing these cameras very fairly, looking at both positives and negatives in relation to the Ace Pro 2. It's no surprise that the Ace Pro 2 is very much a video-first action camera. After all, that's what action cameras were originally meant for. So it's just a welcome surprise that it's also now a very good street photography camera. It can produce 50 megapixel images or 12.5 megapixel images in the 2x crop mode, and record up to 8K video resolution from its 1/1.3 inch sensor. Of course, this would be a hard comparison to make if we weren't using the Explorer Grip Pro on the Ace Pro 2. Which gives us access to a zoom rocker and also a control wheel on the back of the camera for changing settings, much like on the TG7. Now, coming from a different direction, the TG7 is pretty much the opposite in philosophy to the Ace Pro 2. This is very much a photography-first compact camera made to withstand harsh weather conditions with some video specs as well. It can shoot 12 megapixel images and video up to 4K resolution from its 1/2.3 inch sensor, much like most compact cameras. So let's first compare these cameras in terms of street photography. So I decided to pit these two cameras together by taking them to Venice for a day of street photography during Carnival. Starting off with the Ace Pro 2. Now, when you're shooting on the Ace Pro 2, I think it's important to crop in using the 2x crop mode for street photography. Now, this does limit our resolution to 12.5 megapixels, but it removes that overall action camera look that isn't super flattering for street photography. But this crop gets us close to a typical 28mm full frame focal length, which is very comfortable for busier street scenes like we have in Venice. Now, this also lets us get stuck into the action, to include multiple elements in our frame, which is lots of fun when you have masked people, cats in trolleys, and pigeons all over the place. The TG7, on the other hand, offers flexible focal lengths, from 25mm at the widest, all the way up to 100mm at the full length of its optical zoom lens. This means you can find some shots at 35mm, 50mm, or whatever you want between the widest and longest on this lens. Both cameras produce excellent RAW files, and for the vast majority of these shots, I was shooting in the 12.5 megapixel mode on the Ace Pro 2, so that pretty much matches the 12 megapixels of the TG7 sensor. I've edited all of these images from both cameras using the exact same preset with some minor adjustments to white balance. So you can see the before and afters of how this affects both the DNG RAW files from the Insta360 Ace Pro 2 and the .orf files from the TG7. Personally, I preferred working with the .dng files from the Ace Pro 2, even though they sometimes appear a bit darker straight out of camera. They retain much more dynamic range when compared to the TG7, which seems to be able to blow out highlights very easily in high contrast scenes, or with some super reflective points, like we had here with some masks in Venice. And if you don't fancy editing your shots whatsoever, with the Ace Pro 2 you can also shoot with one of the many in-camera picture profiles, like Leica Vivid or Leica Eternal, which I was using for all of my in-camera like JPEG previews, and also I've kept all the JPEGs so you can see these alongside the RAW files and the edited RAW files, so you can kind of get an idea of what the in-camera JPEGs can look like. Now, in terms of video, the TG7 also claims it can shoot 4K video, but as we all know, not all 4K video is created equal, and the TG7's does suffer, especially when you compare it to the highest resolution of the Ace Pro 2 being 8K, and then also having things like 4K super slow-mo up its sleeve. But we're going to get more into video a bit later because there's lots to talk about in that department. As I mentioned earlier, the TG7 has a fixed optical zoom, which takes it from 25mm at the wide end to 100mm at the long end. When compared to the Ace Pro 2's natural focal length of an equivalent to like 13mm in the ultra wide, and then 26mm at the 2x zoom, you get much more flexibility on the TG7. Not only that, but the TG7 also features a very close focus distance of up to 1 centimeter, which can make for very interesting macro close-up shots in nature, which is kind of where this camera is designed to be used, which the Ace Pro 2 cannot do out of the box. But of course, the Ace Pro 2 now also has this modular functionality with things like the close-up lens and the ability to use this with focus peaking to be able to increase that close focus distance. So here are some side-by-sides so you can actually see the comparison between the TG7's super close-up focus distance and then what the close-up lens can currently do on the Ace Pro 2. Now, the Ace Pro 2, on top of the close-up lens, also has other lens attachments available, and one of these really stands out when you compare it with the TG7, especially when it comes to shooting video. Each of these cameras has clear strengths when it comes to filming video, and the TG7's is quite obvious, and that is the fact that it can shoot from 25mm roughly in video up to 100mm, which gives you a nice variety of perspectives to be able to shoot from one vantage point, which is very handy in mountainous areas where you can't get around easily. Whereas the Ace Pro 2, well, it's an action camera, so video is kind of its thing. As you can see from these examples, stabilization can make or break your video, and the Ace Pro 2 is a clear example of video done brilliantly. The multiple options of stabilization strength in camera smooth out things a lot. Then you throw on some slightly slower frame rates to be able to slow down that motion, and you create buttery smooth motion. And this is before you then do things like add the ultra-wide lens to the front of the Ace Pro 2, which then gives you a much wider field of view, really immersing the audience in your footage. And when we compare this field of view and stabilization to that of the TG7, well yeah, it's not even close. The stabilization on the TG7 just cannot keep up, especially if you're on a mountain doing some action sports. And the crop factor on the TG7 is then increased because of shooting in things like 4K and also having stabilization turned on. So that widest 25mm has now cropped through 4K and stabilization up to close to a 33 or 35mm field of view equivalent. Not only that, but the TG7 does not have the same flip-up LCD screen that the Ace Pro 2 has. That gives you a nice, big and bright display to be able to see yourself while you're filming, not just what's in front of you, which gives you a lot of flexibility both in the photography we were shooting earlier and if you're out on a slope shooting some action sports. Now, when it comes to talking about video, we also have to talk about audio, and the TG7 has surprisingly okay audio considering this is a compact camera designed for going underwater. It has very basic built-in microphones, but actually the audio quality is not that terrible. It does have a lot of hiss in there, but I do think your voice does come out quite clear. So it's definitely usable for sprinkling the odd audio clip over some B-roll if you're shooting with it as an action camera. Whereas the Ace Pro 2 has a dedicated front-facing microphone with a built-in wind guard, which does have a lot of extra sensitivity, which maybe in a reverby room like this right now is going to sound quite reverby, but it has much clearer audio and it sounds much more full, less tinny and less hissy than the TG7. But Insta360 also have another trick up their sleeve for improving the audio from this camera. Now with this Insta360 Mic Air connected via Bluetooth, we now have wireless Bluetooth audio connected to our Ace Pro 2 that we don't need to be right in front of the camera to be able to get the exact same audio quality. This also has the option of a wind guard if you're filming outside and it's a bit breezy, but this gives you much higher quality audio that doesn't matter where you are relative to the camera. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, if you use my code down below, you'll get one of these microphones for free when you buy an Ace Pro 2. So which of these cameras is the perfect hybrid between a street photography camera and an action camera? Well, the TG7 I think is fantastic for the landscape photographer, maybe a bit less so for the fast-moving street photographer. Its optical zoom lens is incredibly flexible, but I don't love it for the dynamic range problems. And then also, the video is frustrating to the point of it may as well not be included in the camera. Whereas the Ace Pro 2, which was originally designed as an action camera video beast, has video pretty much on lock. That is not even up for debate. The video quality is fantastic, with multiple picture profiles, stabilization options, and resolutions. Now with the addition of the Explorer Grip Pro bundle, along with the lens attachments, the firmware updates, the new Leica Eternal profile, and Bluetooth connectivity with the Mic Air and then also the Bluetooth printer, it's kind of becoming this all-in-one ecosystem. And why we haven't seen an Ace Pro 3 yet, I'm not too sure, but I'm really enjoying the updates we're getting to the Ace Pro 2. And it just makes you more and more optimistic about whatever the next full physical iteration of this camera is going to be. So for me, if I could only pack one of these cameras as both a street photography beast and also good for action camera video, it's gonna be the Ace Pro 2. And that's before you even get into the fact that you can print out your photos instantly and give them away, much like I did in my first video on the Ace Pro 2, which you can see right here. Oh, I miss Japan. I miss fishing. Many fishing pics in Japan in this video.